Hi, and welcome to the Handbag Designer 101 podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag designer expert and handbag fairy godmother, where we cover everything about handbags from making, marketing, designing, and talking to handbag designers and industry experts about what it takes to make a successful handbag. Welcome, Rafy Titenko, to the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. Rafy, you are the founder, creator, creative director of pretty much everything Rafy, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Pretty myself and I.
Oh, man. How many years has it been?
Since I launched,
The first time?
98?
I didn't even know it was that long.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, still at it.
Listen, if we're going to OG status, I mean, I brought you to SCAD. They were like, find a designer to bring with you. I'm like, I'm calling Rafy. That was a fun weekend.
Yes, no, completely. That was fun. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So were you born in the Philippines or were you born here?
Yes. I was born in the Philippines when I moved to New York in 1989. How
old were you? No pressure.
21.
So you did all of your schooling in the Philippines?
Yes. So no, it was as I wanted to come to New York because when I was in the Philippines, I already had a business. I was 18, I think. I had an atelier of like 30 workers doing clothes.
How do you have an atelier at 18? And how are you adult enough to do that?
Oh, well, I wasn't, but kind of worked out. It started with a seamstress on my kitchen table, essentially. And it grew from there. And people wanted the clothes I was making. And before I knew it, I was like, oh, we need more. We need a tailor. We need somebody.
You were in high school.
First, I would say like freshman college.
Okay. So is anyone in your family like within the crafts world?
No, actually, both of my sisters at that time in the Philippines were fashion models. So they were my exposure to fashion, which was...
So you're the youngest?
Yes, yeah.
Of three?
It was a great education, actually, because I could see, it was like, for me, it was really like a eureka moment to see these, women who were like essentially college girls transform themselves into like creatures of the night with like all these like incredible fashion and modeling, and this whole world was so seductive, to a teenager. And I was hooked. I loved it. So I started making clothes for myself. At that time, there was no fast fashion. So you really had
You were the fast fashion.
Well, as fast as I could make them. I mean, because I was literally making clothes for friends to wear every weekend for...
So you taught yourself how to use a machine?
No, I didn't sew any of it. I had seamstresses and a tailor to do all that stuff. I would sketch it and they would make it for me. And it was kind of like you learn as you go. I mean,
were you going to pull materials and fabrics? I mean, I know that...
Yeah, we had a big area for wholesale fabrics and stuff like that. I had a runner who would like run there every like day to like buy fabrics and buttons and all that stuff. And at that time in the Philippines, everything was so like preppy, and I really was kind of more thinking about like 𝐀𝐿 and 𝐃𝐞𝐬𝐢. So that was more my vibe, and I couldn't get any of those clothes there. So I was just like, let me emulate what they're doing and see if I can create kind of like in the mood of this. Of course, at that time, there was only magazines, right? And I couldn't even afford the magazines I wanted to buy because ID was so expensive. It was like...
ID magazine, I can't. Wait, can I ask you though, the designers you just referenced? Oh my God. No, hey, I'm here for it. But the designers that were your inspiration were Asian designers. Is that why? Because,
No, I also love Gaultier. All that I love. I love Claude Montana, like all of those, I mean, I kind of loved all of them. The Americans, interestingly, not so much, because I just thought clothes were a little basic, except Zoran. I don't know if you remember Zoran.
Oh, yeah.
There was one collection Calvin did that was kind of like so not Calvin, which I kind of loved. It was like very kind of Moroccan, kind of, Eastern inspired. I was like, wow, this is, and actually now come to think of it, I also love Perry Ellis.
Oh, when he was,
his silhouettes, and it was like preppy but also like oversized. So he did a lot of things that were interesting. Oh, and sorry, Norma Kamali, of course.
God bless her. She still has a bang.
Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely. So so I was inspired by all of that.
So if it wasn't for your sisters,
for me and my friends, actually. I only started dressing my sisters later because my sisters in the beginning were like, oh, our little brother's trying his little thing,
Bless.
It's eventually like a lot of people were started to wear my clothes. That's when you were just like, maybe you can make me something, It was fun. It was fun.
So it never dawned on you to get a sewing machine and do it yourself.
Well, so that was my frustration. That's why I went to New York to go to FIT to learn, because certain things I wanted to do and then seamstress couldn't do it. I was like, wait, what do you mean you don't know how to do it? And she's like, no, I don't know how to do it. I'm like, something was wrong. I didn't know how to fix it. That was very frustrating for me. So I wanted to learn the technicalities and how things were made and understand why certain things drape this way, and just kind of go a little deeper beyond sketching and giving it to a seamstress. And
people don't seem to realize that understanding how materials work back then wasn't perceived scientific, but it really is.
It really
why
is.
Certain materials work together, why one drapes, one doesn't. And
you want a cowl neck, do it in silk, don't do it in linen, stuff like that.
You have to understand the fibrous content of how things work, and X percentage cotton. I mean, that's straight up chemistry and math.
Yes. Yeah. And there's so much as well, like techniques that I just didn't know. Like I would look at certain things from like, Vogue and Harper's Bazaar or like, Italian magazines. And I'd be like, so why does this look like that? Why is this doing that? Why is this sleeve doing that? Like, what's the secret there? So I enrolled in FIT.
Was that a big deal? Must have been.
It was. And I was really actually frightened, because I was like, oh my God, what if I'm not at it good? What if I suck?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Do you remember the flight to New York? Because that's a long one.
Yes, no, it was kind of exciting. Actually, I flew through LA. I stopped in LA first to see relatives, which was kind of like a nice sort of way to get into, sort of segue into New York. And I remember arriving in New York in the evening from LA, and it was like
terrifying.
Actually, I wasn't terrified. I was excited. I was like, oh my God, here it is. Here we go. Let's do this. It was fun. It was just like, I always say I love leaving and I love coming back, because it's just something about like that skyline and those lights coming in.
Yeah.
That was, for me, like a magnet. I was like, oh my God, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where
did you live? Did you live in the dorms?
No, my sister was already living here at the time. So
Tessa?
Tessa. Yeah. So
all goes back to Tessa.
Yes. So she lived in the Upper East Side, 89th Street. Yeah, 89th Street. Yeah, really far from FIT.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it was, it was a 5-floor walk up, and we did it. It was, that was home, and I slept in a futon, and it was a tiny, tiny apartment, and we made it work. And then we eventually downtown. But yeah.
You and Tessa. So your second older sister was there before you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Tessa was the first to move to New York. Yeah. So she sort of paved the way for me in a sense, because she's actually the one who sort of convinced me to come to New York. Because she's like all this stuff you're doing in the Philippines, this is fun. She's like go play with the big boys.
That's were you as close with her before you moved? Like,
I have to say we got closer as I moved, obviously, because we had to live together. And it was also like the first time I think we actually interacted as adults.
Right.
Before that, I was just like her little brother.
Right. Yeah, and also like who's buying food and who's doing this. And you have to then be responsible.
We had to sort of, coexist. And so it was good.
One of the things I like about FIT students, I mean, I've taught at all 3 schools, and I think it's because FIT is a SUNY, a state school of New York, versus Parsons, which is of course private. But the majority of my students at FIT have always worked. And I think it's because, number one, the expectation of being an FIT student is that you need to work, because, any student worth their salt only goes for 2 years if you're an industry person. And number 2, because of the cost, most people are paying their own way. Did you work while you were going to school?
Yes. Yeah, I was working for a manufacturing company. And actually, I really loved it. I loved going to class in the evening because during the day I worked. So everything I did during the day sort of reinforced what I was doing in the evening. So it was great because I was kind of really into it, like, like day to night, literally. Like I would be there till 10 o'clock at night because my classes went from like 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night for like...
I've taught those classes, not a fan, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was there for like 4 nights a week. It was intense. But at the same time, because there were evening classes, I would say my interaction with the other students, my classmates were like, listen, if you're going to be there from 6 to 10 at night, you're not there to party. You're there to learn. Yeah. And I loved it. And that was to me, like, I'm still friends with the people I met there, some of the people that I met there, because they were serious, they were there to learn. So I kind of like that sort of, that energy of like, intensity was really, I mean, for me, I thrived on it.
Yeah. I mean, you're like, that's the age to do it.
Yes.
How did you transition from, making apparel on your kitchen table to realizing that handbags would be your jam?
To be honest, I really thought that I would be doing clothing in New York. But then when I was working for this company, I realized within the first year that I was like, oh my God, to actually produce a clothing collection, one, I don't know what I would have to sell. I have nothing, like it just like financially impossible unless, and I didn't have deep pockets. We don't, middle class background. I did come from like, a Trustafarian, you know what I mean? So,
and who missed out? Talk about it,
Yeah, no, it was...
Wrong family.
Yeah, no, I was just like, I looked at those bills because I would sign off on the bills, to give to accounting. And I'd be like, oh my God, the buttons this season was 25,000 and those are just samples. I was like, ouch. Like, that's just buttons. We're not even looking at the fabric. And I was like, pattern makers, this and that. And when you start to add all of that up without even like really adding it up, just like visually looking at the warehouse or even the sample room, sample workers. And I was just like, oh my God. And that's just to produce samples. That's
totally.
I was just like, no, I can't. So that I somehow quickly realized that at least with accessories, it's one size fits most.
Yep. And size agnostic, non-judgmental fashion.
Exactly. Right. Yep. Like, and also ageless in a way and not size specific as well. Right. So that was, to me, it was like, okay, so I can still be in fashion, work for myself and not go under.
Right. So much.
Yeah.
How long after you graduated did you start your own line?
I never graduated.
How many years in did you go?
I have, crazily enough, I had like 2 or 3 classes left.
Dude, you should reach out to them. You get that honorary degree.
Really?
Yeah, man. I'll make a phone call for you.
Really?
Let me say, I'm putting that honorary degree, Rafy.
The crazy thing is they actually asked me years later to come and speak to the graduating class. And Joyce Brown backstage said to me, what year did you graduate? I was like,
honey bunny.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. I never finished. She goes, oh, please don't share that. I'm like, no, don't worry.
Did you end up speaking?
I did. I spoke to the class.
As a proud student. Oh my God.
No, it was funny. My assistants at that time, they were like holding it in the audience because they're like, oh my God, he's speaking to the graduating class. And
like, I had a secret. Man. I guess that preceded social or having bad people working for you to rat you out. Like,
no, actually, I thought it was just kind of funny. I was like, really? They want me to speak to the graduating class? Okay.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So you had started a handbag line whilst you were there and then was like, forget it. I might as well just keep going.
Yes. I mean, essentially because I got really busy with, manufacturing and I was kind of doing everything myself initially. I just didn't have the time to.
How did you decide, what your anchor piece, your core silhouette would be? How did you decide the materials? How did you go through that process so young while still having a day job and work and going to school?
God, I can't even remember. I think it was mostly like the beginning was like, okay, I want to do these silhouettes and I wanted something that was kind of easy, somewhat classic, but I wanted them at that time. I wanted them to be in PVC, like patent PVC. which I started out with belts, with skinny belts. And then skinny belts I did wristbands. And then actually it kind of happened by accident. I walked into a store and I was selling them, wristbands and belts. Fred Siegel, big drop. You imagine?
Big.
And then I remember the buyer was like, "Do you make bags?" I was like,
Of course.
"Of course."
Yeah. Yes to it all.
It's just running late. Go home and I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't even."
What's this bag look like?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I remember like designing the collection in a cafe with my roommate at that time, and she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm designing a collection of handbags." She's like,
Wait, your roommate, meaning your sister? Or
no, I did, she had already her own apartment. I had my own apartment. I had a roommate, and we were just laughing it off, like having coffee, and I was just sketching away. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of those things, and it was funny. Somehow, like 𝐷𝐸 magazine heard about me. I don't remember how. So the editor was like, "I want to come and see the collection." I was like, "Oh, okay.
Oh, damn! Here we go."
Yes, here we go. So she came in with like, I think I had like 3 bags and belts and whatever. And I displayed them on like a garden, planter, like
right
up there in the apartment. And she was really sweet. And she was like, "You should go and meet Anne Slowey." I was like, "Oh, okay. Who?"
Oh, man.
Anne Slowey. I was like, "Okay." She's
yeah,
like,
that predated Google. You're like, sure. Where do I look her up?
Yeah. So I actually it's so funny. I just so ignorance is bliss. I showed up, W magazine. I'm like, "I'm here to see Anne Slowey." And they're like, "You have an appointment?" No. Here.
But I have my bags. Oh my God.
So crazy. And Anne was coming in from lunch. The security guard was like, "There's a guy here to see you." And she was like, "Oh, hi." I'm like, "Hi, I'm a handbag designer, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to show you my collection." She's like, "Sure."
Okay.
Can you imagine?
No, absolutely not.
And then she asked me, she was like, "Oh, kids, these are really cute." She goes, "But we're working on a story. Can you make a bag for me?" I was like, "Sure." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "I'm doing a cork story. Can you do a cork bag?" I'm like, "Sure." So I had a cork bag made that was a fold over clutch. Where did
you get the cork from?
Where did I buy it from? I bought it from, I forget which company, but I bought it like online. No, actually, no. I bought it more on 38th Street.
Yeah, I was going to say online. That's cute.
No.
Not back then.
It's like
no.
And it was so difficult to work with. It wasn't really...
Cork, I was consulting with one designer who was obsessed with cork. Like obsessed. And I've worked with Amram Cork. They were part of the Handbag Awards.
Yeah.
And yes, it's sustainable. Yes, it's eco, blah, blah, blah. No one wants a fully corked bag. I mean, it's a great editorial piece, but nobody wants it.
Exactly. Right.
And it's hard to work with.
Yes, it was.
Good for shoes, not good for bags.
Right. So I did a fold over clutch trimmed in leather. And it was this big sort of 70s with a, cutout frame and a loop coming through. And I sent it to her and I was just so frightened because I was like, "Oh my God, what if it doesn't make it? I spent all this money, blah, blah, blah." And then she called me afterwards. She's like, "Oh, are you ready to pick up the clutch?" I said, "Okay." I didn't even say anything. I was like,
yeah.
She's like, "Well, do you want to know if it made it?" like, "I'm just here to pick up the clutch." Of course, I was my own messenger.
Right. Yeah.
And she was like, "No, it made it to the page. You'll see." And I was like, "Okay." And then, like months later, it came out. It's a full page with lingerie shoes and my clutch in the center. I was like, and then Bergdorf's called, like, "Oh, we'd like to see your collection." I was like, "Oh, shit."
You were in a bucket of happy accidents with this.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
No, it was kind of just like, one thing after another.
Right place, right time.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I kind of went with the flow, and Bergdorf's was like incredible. The fashion director at the time was so sweet and so supportive, and gave me a lot of advice, and it was nice. And until that was a time when they were actually looking for new people, so it was a good time to be doing handbags.
How did you determine such a different time, which I hate saying dates us, but how vested were you in your customer with the price point? Like, were you going to Bergdorf's?
Initially nothing. I mean, initially I didn't know at all. I was just kind of going with, first of all, the aesthetic of what I liked, which was, very much inspired by vintage bags I had bought like in 26th Street Flea Market.
Right.
I used to buy them from Anna Karina of all people.
My God.
I was like her regular. Every Saturday I was there. Like, "Hey, Anna, what's new?"
Yeah.
I would buy all these vintage bags and I would kind of dissect them and kind of rework them so that I could kind of make
Have
them.
your own DNA tied to it.
Well, also because I'm so much of the vintage bags you can't really do anymore the way they are, right?
Yeah.
It's like hardware doesn't function the way they used to, and how do you simplify things? So it was like a really good like lesson for me in construction as well. Yeah, and initially it was all just the visual and also kind of looking at the bag and be like, so I think I can sell this for this much. So then, subdivide that into like what the wholesale is without necessarily working out the real cost of it, because I was frightened of the real cost, because I'm sure that actually I know now that back in those days, I wasn't making money. I was making enough for this to pay for it, but not enough to like earn a living.
Right.
It was literally just circular, right? Like as soon as something sold, you make a new one. And I didn't know what I was doing, but it was a good lesson.
At which point were you officially a business? Do you remember the moment where you were like, okay, I need to be conscientious. I need overhead. I need an office. Like, when did all that hit?
After, I would say, the first trade show that I joined, which was at the Plaza at that time, the accessories circuit. The Plaza. When there was
how did you know to do a trade show at the time? I know at least full.
Yeah, I think somebody had reached out to me to join, or I think my showroom was joining at that time, and I kind of joined the showroom. I don't remember exactly, but it was a blizzard of 90. When was that blizzard? There was a big blizzard in New York. And because all the buyers were stuck in the Plaza, everybody kept walking into our room. And, I met a lot of buyers and and actually had a lot of orders, which was kind of like, wow, okay, so this is real now. All right, what do I do with this? This is beyond now just Bergdorf Goodman.
Right.
So it was, yeah. And, and after that, I was like, okay, let me get my first assistant. Yeah, it was just like one step at a time. I literally started very, very small with one assistant, and we kind of did everything, and it was amazing. I had a partner at the time, my life partner and business partner. We both kind of put our savings together and kind of started from there, really. It was, small, tiny.
Was it scary to be doing this with someone else? Because it's a lot of people don't seem to realize the complications. Everybody, I feel like, ignorantly goes in working with somebody, right? You need the support, you need the backup. You realize you can't be everything to everyone internally and externally. So, then you say, okay, I'm design, I'm fashion, I'm kind of sales, because I need to be in all these meetings because I need to hear with the buyers, but I'm not the one handling the money. I can't do that.
Right.
But, then it's like, then you kind of have a boss of your internally, and was that tricky?
No, because I think we were very clear that it was my name and my company, and I literally, aside from working on the back end and supporting all of that stuff, final decisions were really still mine. Right. So that's very clear from the start. He was really an amazing support system, because he kind of did all the back end that was impossible for me to figure out, speaking.
Did you have anything in place if it didn't work out? Did that ever cross your mind? Oh, damn, I hope we stick together. At
that time, we did not, interestingly enough, but eventually we did. We, hired an accountant, had it, had the company sort of registered and all of that stuff. And yeah, I was fortunate that he never it never went south. We were determined to do something with this. It was good. It was a good partnership.
Is he still your partner?
He has passed, unfortunately.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Yes, unfortunately, but.
Wow. I had no idea. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's okay.
Yeah. Comma.
Life happens, right? Life happens.
Boy, does it ever. It's God, you think you're prepared for so much, and then something just sucker punches you.
Yes. Yeah. And, let's not forget 2008. Right. I think that was a rude awakening for a lot of brands.
Oh, that.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, on market dropping? You mean people don't want to keep buying more and more and more and more?
Yeah.
You mean you're going to cancel my order? Now what am I supposed to do with all my inventory? How many trunk shows can I do to sell the shit?
Yeah. Plus nobody wanted anything, right?
Nope.
Really, but it was Like literally the floor dropped. The floor caved in.
How did you handle that?
It was very hard. I mean, it was like, I went from like 15 people to 3 people in one afternoon. It was heart-wrenching. It was hard. So very, very.
Was that his call saying like, look, we got to get rid of all these people. We can't afford them.
It was both our calls. I mean, it was like the writing was on the wall. There was just like every store had canceled their orders. It was like, how do we?
What did you do with all the production?
Unfortunately, I had already prepaid for some of them. So we had to kind of go through them and then close them out. We closed them out, which was also like the worst thing. Can you imagine like stuff coming in and they don't even go to the stores. They go straight to like close out. It was hard. That was really, yeah.
I mean, but that's life for a business, right?
Yes.
I mean, you want to at least just make back the money you paid for it, like if anything. And then you're like, I'll take whatever you can give me. Just need something.
Yeah. No, I mean, this was right before 2008. I mean, we were like on a high. I mean, my God, we were producing women's shoes. We were doing men's bags. We were doing, jewelry even. I mean, we kind of did so much stuff. We almost did too much. And then the footwear, I mean, God, produced in Spain. We could produce out of Italy, produce out of China.
Yeah.
Before I knew it, I went from like 1 assistant to like 4. It was like, I mean, it was amazing. It was a really amazing trip when I'm still friends with some of my assistants at that time. And
well, I mean, look, you are a stand-up guy. You're a nice person. I think the people with whom you were working probably understood that it wasn't by choice. So it's not like you were being a dick about it. You were like, I would keep you if I could, but I can't.
Right.
So
and guess what? Like if you read the papers,
yeah.
we're all in it. And
by the way, take a bag on your way out because I got some extras.
Yeah, no, it was bad. I mean, even when we did sample sales, it was like, God, there was like a line all around the block for people who were buying it because the bags were like, I mean, retail was like $450. I was literally selling them for like less than $100 just to kind of,
get it out.
Yeah.
Cash.
No, it was hard. It was hard, especially because we were in such a high. We had a license agreement with a Japanese company. They opened stores for us. There was like all this stuff that was like amazing, selling international, doing the shows in Milan for MeCom and Paris. And it was like,
and then poof.
Go. And then poof. That was hard.
How did you working for Nine West come to be? And then how did it come to pass?
That was interesting because I was working with a financial person who...
and it was very timely for a designer.
It was very timely, yes.
To then all of a sudden guest design a mid-tier brand per se and take over. And then, by the way, my brand's coming in-house for you to do it too.
Right. No, it was, I was introduced to Richard Dixon, who at that time was the new CEO. And I remember, we met for coffee and he goes, what do you want to do? I was like, what do you want me to do? He goes, our business is broken. It needs fixing. He goes, but it's not just one business, it's several businesses. So I was like, I said, I can do that. Which I was like, can I do that?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think I can do that. And I already had an offer on the table for another company at that time. That was so much more easier and smaller. And I was like,
which one?
I can't tell you. But anyway.
It's been so long, Rafy.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'd rather not. But anyway, so I was like, this
under the rug. Look at you.
Yeah. I was like, this I can do. So much easier. But then Nine West, I was like, that could be fun. That could be a challenge. If I fail, I'll fail miserably. I'll go down in flames at least. Let's do this. And then
but at least you'll look good going down. That's
exactly. Then I met the brand president who I knew for, she was working in Bendel's and we had lunch as well. And after lunch, we were like laughing and was just like, I was like, can we do this together? She's like, yes, we can do this together. I was like, okay. So yeah, it was, as soon as I arrived my first day, I remember my first meeting with like the design team. I was like, okay, I'm really sorry, but we're canceling everything. Can you imagine?
Wow.
And we're flying to China in 3 days to fix everything.
Wow.
In China. No,
how to win friends and influence people really fast.
I mean, because the call was like, what do you want to do? You do what you think is right. So I walked in and I was like, this all of it's like not appropriate. I was like, oh my God, like I don't have the answer. We have to do it all together. But I just know in my gut that this is wrong. Like we have to fix this. So we all flew to China, like 8 of us, worked until like midnight for like a week until everything was sampled correctly. And then we came back to market. And fortunately, the response was amazing. Like literally like
nice day.
Yes. Like, well, one of their biggest accounts was Macy's. And they actually said, finally, something we can buy.
They brought your brand in-house too.
Eventually, yes. The agreement was they were going to license it. And if I was just kind of like stay quiet for a year while I fixed the business, because I was also overseeing Rachel Roy, Anne Klein. And then within Nine West, there was wholesale, international, off-price. So there were like essentially 3 divisions, right, within one brand. Anne Klein was the same. There was off-price, there was full price. Rachel Roy was exclusive to Macy's. So there was a lot of development. And then there was also conversations about bringing in Brian Atwood.
I remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, all of a sudden I went from like meeting to meeting to meeting. It was like I was in design meetings infinitum,
I mean, I'm sure that was exciting at the beginning, but what brought that to an end? Were you like, this is like the passion's gone, I'm just pumping up products?
Actually, it was private equity. Private equity came and bought Nine West and started subdividing everything and, eventually kind of putting a lot of debt into it and sold it off. So that
were you able to get your brand back without any issue?
No, yeah. I mean, because it was a license agreement. So they never owned it. They owned the rights to produce it, but since they weren't produce it anymore, so it was like, it was time to give it back to me. So it was kind of amazing actually, because I think at the time when they were going through line item per line item, they were like, oh, we don't own you. I'm like, that's right. No, you don't.
Wow.
They were like, so we have to pay you off. I'm like, kind of. Yeah.
Guess so.
No,
because they were going back on the contract you had with them.
Right. And they had to kind of like again, because they were selling off the different brands, it was kind of like the writing was on the wall. It was like the end of an era, essentially. And I had a great run. I had a great time.
How many years were you there?
5 years.
That's a long time.
It was a long time. Yeah. But it went so quickly because we were in China 4 times a year. We were in Europe like 4 times a year. We were like nonstop. It was like literally like I was
that was faster than you had ever dealt. Like,
yes.
And all of a sudden you're like, I need to like up my game because I'm now doing what I'm doing on crack.
Yes. Yeah. It was crazy. It was a crazy time, but it was great. I have to say, I have no regrets. I made a lot of really good friends and connections, people who I'm still in touch with to this day. And even, the factories I worked with in China, a lot of those people, of course, ceased to work for Nine West and they started working for other companies. But I remember the last time I was in China, which was like 2017 or 18.
Pre-pandemic.
I was like, oh, I'm in Dongguan, people. Like, can we all have dinner? And like everyone from the old office showed up and we had a great time. And we were
big dinner.
Yeah, it was a big dinner and we're all laughing and reminiscing and it was really nice. And to me, it was like, okay, so you know what? Not for anything else, but the fact that they're all here tonight means so much.
Well, you're also, once again, a nice guy. So it's not like, people remember working with people who are not pleasant and you're a pleasant guy. So I'm sure.
We would laugh about that. I mean, like, God, they would teach me like little words and little phrases in Mandarin. And they said, even if we worked until like midnight sometimes, and, they would have to like, go home at like 1 a.m. Somehow they were like not upset with it. They weren't annoyed with me. Like it was like they knew that it had to be done.
Right.
So we would kind of laugh about that stuff because it's like, and also I was, the first to tell them, like, I'm really sorry if you have to go home.
Right.
But I'm going to stay because we need to get this done.
Right.
They're like, no, we'll stay with you. I'm like, oh, I feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm going back to a hotel. They're going to like travel for like an hour to go.
Yeah.
They're like, no, it's okay. It's okay. When you leave, we'll catch up on our sleep. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. We're not coming back.
Yeah.
How, because after all that happened and then the pandemic hit, how has that led you back to still pursuing your brand and doing it at a different pace? Because, the market has changed, social media has changed,
right.
Brands with fans having to share your story.
Right.
You know, like you still know your customer, you still know who she is. Like, has she evolved? I mean, obviously she's older. What are you doing to capture new people and keep these people coming back?
So it's interesting because like recently this company called Front Row Fashion Week had reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to do a show in LA. And in my initial reaction was like, oh my God, I can't. Like I have no energy. I was exhausted. And then at some point I was like, you know what?
Why not?
Why not? Because the idea of a bag show was just like, oh my God, it's going to be so boring. Who wants to see tiny bags on a runway?
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? Why don't I also they gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. They literally were like, we'll pay for
Here's
everything.
some money.
Just show up with the bags. I was like, oh,
okay.
I should do that. I could do that. So I did it. And, I decided to do like a 3-minute presentation essentially of like dancers instead of models voguing with bags. Actually, I have to say, like, not for anything else, but I was just like, oh my God, this was so much fun. Everybody had a great time. Even the audience was kind of like, they were like, oh my God, like, what's happening now?
That's so cool.
Like club music, and these girls were coming up with the bags, and I had band dancing, and all of them had bags. I was just like, make sure whatever you do, there was no choreography. I said, feel the music. Whatever you do, don't make people forget that it's about the bag.
That's
and it was
key.
great.
Well done.
It was a way for me to also like meet new customers. And so I it's interesting because I think, again, because the bags are sort of ageless, I'm capturing a whole new audience. I'm actually, funnily enough, I'm capturing my friend's daughter's generation. Like their next generation of like, oh my God, this is so cool. Or like, oh my God, we wanted a mom's clutch. So now we want to have our own clutch. And
right.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. I just have to keep at it. Right.
One more question. Now, I know you...
I think I answered your question.
No, you totally did. But in recognizing your roots from the Philippines, I know you have a clutch that's made from a shell from the Philippines.
Yeah, abalone shell, yeah.
Right, that's it. I didn't want to say the wrong shell. I couldn't remember.
Yes.
Are you actively making sure that your heritage and culture is still always an integral part of the brand?
It's interesting because it's not something that I consciously do. I think it's inevitable for what I do. It's like people always ask me, it's like, how do you make sure that there's a Filipino touch? I'm like, I actually don't think of it that way.
Like, it's not like your silhouettes are Tagalog named. Did I say it right?
Exactly. Yeah, Tagalog.
Right?
Yeah, Tagalog. Yeah, no, it's like, I mean, I guess because I am who I am, it'll come through no matter what, right? And I'm happy about that because it's authentic to who I am. And when people see it, they realize where I am from. I'm from the islands. They're like, oh, we get it. It comes through. I'm like, I should hope so.
Yeah.
It is my DNA. So yes. And I also love the fact that I'm also working not just with the Philippines, but I'm working still with my Chinese factories, India as well. I mean, for me, I think it's really my interest and love of craft. Anything that's handmade, anything that you can see like someone working at it versus, something that's a little bit more like manufactured. So yeah, and I don't produce a lot of quantity. I produce just enough. So there's not too much overstock to get rid of, which is really, I mean, for me, at least that's I don't produce thousands as I used to, but I'm okay with that, And I think people like the fact that they don't see themselves coming and going. They like the fact that when they go to a party, they're like, where'd you get that?
Right.
I had one really, like, one of my favorite stories was like this woman who said to me, she goes, I love wearing your clutches because, let's face it, when you go to a party, black tie dinner, or fancy party, the women, she said, we women don't dress for men. We dress for each other.
Bingo.
She said, so when you put your clutch down on the table and everybody's got their clutch on the table, it's just like game over.
Yeah. Facts.
He puts that like shell clutch. It's like, she goes, you could have as many rhinestones on that bag, but this clutch, let me tell you, you won't see it anywhere else. And
know your DNA with a PhD.
Yeah, right. So I was like, okay, I'm doing something right. I'm connecting with her. And, to this day, that clutch is sold out. I have to remake it. And I'm happy about that people still covet it,
Well, it is covetable. That's
Thank
even
you.
the word. Rafy, it has been an absolute joy. How can people Well, I'll always have you. You know that. We honored you at the Handbag Awards. Your video was so emotional.
Yeah.
I could have, like I said, hosted this without you and told your story back to you, but it's better with you telling it.
Agree.
How can people find you, follow you, buy your beautiful bags?
So social media at Rafy New York, RAFE New York spelled out, www.rafy.com. Easy.
3 W's.
3 W's, exactly. And neimanmarcus.com probably has the most of my things as well. Yeah.
Still.
Still.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, still.
Right.
Absolutely. Hey.
Every season, you're like, oh my
Find
God.
that wave, man. Keep it going.
Yes.
Keep it going. It has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you so much, Emily. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform at Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.